Good morning, class. Today we're going to be talking about the Bill of Rights. So the first thing we have to do today, each of you are going to have one of these bell ringer handouts. This video is only a minute long. What I want you to do while you're watching the video, try and take in as much of the dialogue as you can. Write down every piece of detail that you can for number one, and then for number two, you're going to look to positively identify the correct amendment that is being discussed in the video. All right, so I'm getting stopped here. I'm not exactly sure for what.
Sir, do you know why I stopped you?
No, I don't. What seems to be the problem?
May I see your license, registration, and proof of insurance, please?
Oh, sure, I got that right there for you.
Well, you were going 29 and 25.
Oh, geez, I'm sorry. I didn't exactly realize that.
Sir, could you pop your trunk for me?
Pop my trunk? Is that really necessary? I'm sorry, I was speeding, but I don't.
There have been reports of robberies in the area. So can you just please pop your trunk so I can check it?
I mean, sir, I'm sorry I was speeding. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you might have about what's been going on, but I don't really think I need to pop my trunk.
Sir, please wait.
Going away and pop my trunk. I don't really know what we're going to do that for.
Slow down. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much. Finish up your thoughts on those two questions. After you complete that, you can go ahead and jump over on your device to our Nearpod lesson for today and make sure that code is entered. Do either of you think you were able to positively identify the amendment that was being discussed in the video?
No.
The content of the amendment or the number of the amendment?
Yeah.
It falls in the Bill of Rights, so you have a range to guess.
No.
Nothing.
I got an answer. Is it wrong?
That is incorrect, unfortunately. That's okay. We're going to go ahead and clarify that up in a minute. So make sure you have this code entered on nearpod.com and we'll get going. So the amendment being discussed in the short video clip was the Fourth Amendment, which deals with searches and seizures, which very commonly occurs in a traffic stop. So our objectives today, we want to be able to analyze the Fourth Amendment and how it is used in American society. And in the end, we also want to be able to create a representation of the Fourth Amendment in practice in American life. So first off, we're going to start with looking at the text here of this amendment. Sydney, would you be willing to read that text for us?
The Fourth Amendment is the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue, but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized.
Thank you very much. So as you can see, I broke it up into three different sections for you to kind of try and just chunk it up a little bit to help break down our understanding. So what I want you to do right now is, keeping in mind that text, try and put into your own words the three parts of that amendment. Very briefly, paraphrasing each section, and just number it 1, 2, and 3 in your response. Okay, so looking at that first part of the text of the amendment, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. Luke, how did you paraphrase that into your own words?
Like my answer?
Yes.
I said, for one to be searched, someone must have probable cause.
Very good. Sydney, how about for the second part? And no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation. What does that mean?
Probable cause is needed, and you need to get the court to issue a warrant if there's a good enough reason.
Okay, so probable cause is needed and has to support a warrant that will be issued for any search to take place. And how about that third part? Particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. What is that referring to? Where would that description take place? You
When
mentioned
they're
it already.
in the court, or when they're coming to the house, they have to tell the person what they're doing before they do it.
It would be described within what document that you just referenced?
The warrant.
The warrant. Very good. So I gave a definition here of my own that you both kind of hit the nail on the head there in breaking down those three different parts. So I have a little scenario for you. Think about this for a second. A warrant is issued to search David's garage for stolen car parts. During the search, one officer leaves the garage, goes upstairs to David's bedroom, and finds an unregistered firearm. Can David be prosecuted for having the unregistered firearm? What do you think?
No.
Why?
Because they didn't have a search warrant to go into his bedroom.
They had a search warrant, right?
No.
So which part of the Fourth Amendment was violated? If you
the
look back at that
search.
text.
They didn't have probable cause to go to his bedroom, and they did that without the warrant saying that they could.
Correct. So the last part, where it says that warrant has to particularly describe the place to be searched, the things to be seized, they violated that. They went outside the parameters of the warrant. So having that charge for the firearm, David could probably find himself getting out of that. And that falls under something called the exclusionary rule, which is basically a loophole for citizens in this amendment. It means that anything seized without just cause, they cannot be prosecuted for. So in David's situation here, he was being searched for one thing, but they found something unrelated. He would be kind of free and clear, most likely, in a court of law. So where else do you think we give up rights? Where do we give up those Fourth Amendment rights? Obviously, they're designed to protect us from being wrongfully searched or having things taken from us. So take a minute and type in your answers there. Where are particular places you think we give up those rights? You can just bullet point places. Okay, so what are some of the places that you put that you think we as Americans give up our Fourth Amendment rights?
One being pulled over on the side of the road.
Okay. What else?
Not everyone will counter the cops if they ask to search your house. Not everyone will be smart enough to say you don't have a warrant.
Sure. Some people don't know how to properly protect themselves against those types of questions, like what we saw in the video. What are other places, somewhere that you probably go every day, where you kind of give up those Fourth Amendment rights?
School.
School. How do you give up your rights in school?
You gotta.
What about a school makes you give up your rights to have privacy, to not be searched randomly?
Huh?
Do you put anything in your locker ever?
I've seen people get searched. for
Sure.
bags.
Yeah. Another example is like if you get arrested, some people won't speak without a lawyer present, or some people will, and that'll make them say something that causes them to get in more trouble.
Sure. Okay, so one place that millions of Americans every year give up Fourth Amendment rights is in an airport. If you want to get on an airplane, to do so, you have to go through security, have every part of your body and luggage scanned for things that could be harmful to other passengers to the aircraft. But it's something we're willing to do as Americans to trade off for the service of being on an airplane. Luke, you mentioned traffic stops. In some cases, traffic stops occur and probable cause can present itself based off of scenarios surrounding the stop, if it's a possible fleeing suspect from a crime, if there's something called the plain sight rule in effect, where they see something in the car that would constitute contraband and they need to search the rest of it. And then we also reference school. Millions of kids go to school every day and put stuff in the lockers. Do you as a student own that locker? No, you do not. It's owned by the school. At any time throughout the day, they may choose to search that locker, and if you have something that would be considered, against school rules or against any other type of law, you would obviously be held accountable for that as well. Some schools, depending on where you go, are subject to searches as the students enter the building, just like you would be in an airport. They go through metal detectors, they have their bags searched. And there's nothing really that a student can do about this because it's kind of a prerequisite condition to go to school there. So what we're going to do here is take a look at these 5 different terms that I like to call the guilt scale. Things that an officer could use to determine a person's guilt. 5 terms here: hunch, suspicion, reasonable belief, probable cause, and preponderance of evidence. All I want you to do real quickly is list 1 to 5. Which of those is the least credible and which of those is the most credible? So in other words, which one gives the police the strongest case would be your number 5. Which one is the weakest would be your number 1. Just order those real quick, giving it your best guess. Okay, so what did we think was our least credible option of those 5 terms?
Suspicion.
Sydney?
Hunch.
Okay. So our least credible option is going to be a hunch. Can you put your own definition as to what a hunch is? If you have a hunch about something, what does that mean?
It just means you have like an instinct that like you know something.
Sure, that's a great word to use there, an instinct. You have a feeling, you have a theory, you're making a guess about something, a hypothesis, an instinct. So that's something that doesn't have a whole lot of backing to it, doesn't have a whole lot of substance, and therefore police generally want to try and avoid that as their main source of, quote, evidence if they're trying to, convict someone of wrongdoing. What do we put for number 2? What do you think now we know hunch is number 1? Suspicion number 2. What do you classify as a suspicion?
Just something you feel suspicious, you feel bad about something.
You feel suspicious, you have good reason to believe something happened. So all the cookies got ate from the kitchen. I know that Luke likes cookies. I have a suspicion that he ate the cookies. What do we put for number 3? So now we've got left probable cause, reasonable belief, and preponderance of evidence are our 3 options.
Reasonable belief.
Reasonable belief. I'm going to agree with you there. Reasonable belief, you're starting to get certain pieces of evidence now. Maybe you have an eyewitness account. Sydney saw a 6'5" Caucasian male leave a bank after a robbery was committed. So that would lead police to gather a lineup of people who fit that description. What about number 4? We're down to 2. Probable cause or preponderance of evidence.
Probable cause.
Probable cause number 4, I'm with you. Probable cause, you have a good probability that a crime was committed or there is evidence present at a scene. If I'm pulled over going 90 miles an hour after a bank robbery, police can use that little bit of evidence to search my car as probable cause that I was the suspect fleeing, because driving 90 miles an hour is very out of the ordinary. So that would leave our last one to be preponderance of evidence. I'm guessing one of those words you've probably never heard before. What do you think preponderance of evidence means?
Like the debate whether evidence can be used for or against the.
Possibly. If it's the most credible one, a preponderance of evidence probably means they have
evidence.
They have a good amount of evidence to support their claim, right? A preponderance is like a collection, a gathering of the evidence. It's increasing in quality, it's increasing in quantity, so they have more firm, secure evidence to prosecute a case against. So what we're going to do now is do a quick quiz check on those 5 terms. We have 5 scenarios there that you're going to read through on your devices, and for each one you have the 5 options there of the terms we just went over. Read through the scenario, and given the details, describe or select which term is most fitting to each scenario. Okay, so we did pretty well with that. 9 out of 10 correct combined. So let's go over those real quick. Sydney, can you read number 1 and the answer for us?
Yep. Officer Thompson pulls a car over for speeding. As she is writing out the ticket, she notices a gun and a black cap on the back seat of the car. This car and suspect fit a description of an armed robbery earlier that day. The answer is probable cause.
What led you to believe it was probable cause?
Because they had a reason to believe that they were involved in the robbery because of a eyewitness account.
And what else? What did the officers see in the car?
Oh, and they saw a gun in a robbery.
Very good. Number 2. Luke, can you read that?
Officer Flint is having her lunch when she notices 2 people running out of the bank across the street. And I picked B, suspicion.
And what led you to say it was suspicion? What was
Because-
suspicious about that situation?
She had a bad feeling that if someone was running away from a possible bank robbery, that they were the ones that did it.
Think about how often you see people sprint out of a bank. Not a very normal place to go for a jog, right?
Yep.
How about number 3? Sydney, can you read that one?
Officer Gray is parked outside of a coffee shop when he notices a carload of teenagers drive by. He notices that they are wearing gang colors and driving toward a rival gang's neighborhood. I chose hunch because the officer just had a gut feeling since they were wearing the colors and going toward the neighborhood that they were involved.
Very good. He's using those small pieces of loose evidence, like the colors and the direction they're going, to conjure up something in his head about what could be happening. How about number 4?
Officer Burns and Jefferson are called to a domestic dispute. As they were getting ready to leave, Officer Burns thought he heard a cry for help coming from the closet.
What did you choose for number 4?
Reasonable belief.
Why did you choose reasonable belief? Sydney, can you help him out?
Because the cry gives them a reason to believe that the domestic violence or dispute was coming from that house.
Sure, right? Those two things are kind of connected. You get a domestic violence call and you hear someone crying or yelling for help. That's pretty common. And what about number 5?
Officer Davis is called to the home of an elderly man and his adult son. The kitchen is covered in blood and there is a partially loaded gun in the living room. The elderly man is found dead in the bedroom and the son is sleeping in his bedroom. I chose preponderance of evidence.
Preponderance of evidence. You see from that one, that's probably the most graphic of the 5 descriptions. There's a lot of stuff going on there. There's a partially loaded gun, there's blood on the floor. They've got a whole lot of things they can use to add up to have a preponderance of evidence to see that that crime was committed. Okay, so lastly, to review, we're going to go back and look at those 5 terms and their order of credibility. So what you're doing is you have 10 cards on your screen there, the 5 terms and the numbers 1 to 5. Click the term that you match with the least credible all the way up to the term that you match with the most credible. So just a quick review. Our least credible option is what?
Hunch.
Followed by,
Suspicion.
and then,
Reasonable belief.
and then,
Probable cause. And
finally.
Preponderance of evidence.
Very good. Okay, so to wrap up our discussion with the 4th Amendment and the Bill of Rights today, I'm going to have you pair up or get into a group of as many as 4 people. And what we're going to be doing is doing a recreation of a scenario that you select. You're going to be making a TikTok video to show how the 4th Amendment can be applied in real life and how citizens can use it to protect themselves from unreasonable searches and seizures.